Welcome to Expedition Networking, a special segment of the Networking RX podcast. I'm Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this program. For those of you who are familiar, on the Networking RX podcast, we share information and have conversations with experts, such as authors, researchers, and social scientists. And all of these programs are aimed at helping you learn how to become better at building professional relationships and understanding why they work. In this Expedition Networking segment, however, we're going to bring on successful entrepreneurs and unique professionals and explore their networking adventure and learn how they used relationships to create lasting success. Today on Expedition Networking, I have Mohammed Anwar. Mohammed is president and CEO of Softway and Culture Plus, co-creator and facilitator of Seneca Leaders, co-host of the Love as a Business Strategy podcast, and he's also the author, one of the authors of the Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Love as a Business Strategy, Resilience, Belongings, and Success. And he is celebrated for creating and sustaining a humanity-centered culture at Softway based on the philosophy that love is a business strategy. There's a theme running through this, Mohammed.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Frank.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I really want to jump into, I certainly want to talk about Love as a Business Strategy, the book, but there's a story there that I think a lot of people write books and they just write them from their own conjecture. You're writing this from your own experience. So if you want to share that would be great.
Awesome. No worries. So as mentioned, my name is Mohammed, and I'm the president and CEO of Softway and Culture Plus. So Softway was the first company that I founded almost 19 years ago when I was still in college pursuing my computer science degree. I was like 20 years old. So I went through the motions of starting up the business, and within 10 years, I had reached like the pinnacle of success. We had 300 plus employees, had a lot of major clients, projects, and, I was leading the life of an entrepreneur, driving my fancy cars, flying my planes, and living the life, which many would call the American dream, especially for someone who's an immigrant to this country. But, a couple of years in, after having that much of success, I almost lost the entire business. We were on the verge of bankruptcy. We were hemorrhaging cash. People were quitting left and right. And I was not able to sustain the business to a point that I also had to go through layoffs of almost 100 employees. And unfortunately, I did so in a very inhumane manner. And it got me to recognize through a moment of introspection that this was all my fault. It wasn't the market. It wasn't the projects or any external conditions that led to almost our company closing down. It was all my fault. As a CEO, as a leader of the company, my behaviors, my selfish attitude, and the way I treated our team members is what led to the almost demise of our company. And to be honest, I did not know what to do at the moment. I just knew that this had a lot to do with me. And a few days after my layoffs that we had gone through, I didn't know if the company would survive even a month. And I had the opportunity to go to a football game from my University of Houston, where I graduated from, and I'm a big fan of the University of Houston Cougar football team. And as I was watching this highly anticipated 10th game of the season and our almost 10th victory of the season in 2015, we were not doing so well as a team. Our team was 20 points down going into the fourth quarter, and I was quite disappointed. Was looking forward to something positive in my life. I wanted to leave the game, but something inside of me said, stay back, watch it till the end, support your team. And I'm glad I did, because we ended up coming back from a 20-point deficit and winning by a point in less than 30 seconds and captured our 10th victory of the season. And something in that moment in time like inspired me to say, hey, don't give up, keep going at it. And, I started to see Softway's own fourth quarter financial comeback. Uh, just looking at the Houston Cougars fourth quarter comeback. And I was ready to go back and Monday morning work all that I could. And on Monday morning, I logged into Facebook Live to watch Coach Tom Herman, then Coach Tom Herman's press conference. And since I was so inspired by that victory and what he had accomplished, I was really curious to watch his press conference. And in that press conference, he was asked by the press reporters what had led to the success and the resilience of the team when they were down 20 points. ESPN Game Tracker said we had 0.1% chance of winning that night. How did you come back and win? And he attributed all of that to the culture of love that his team practiced, the love that the team members had for one another, the support for one another. And it was their unselfish attitude to go out in the field and fight for the team member next to you and not for yourself is what led to success, is how he attributed it. And he said, this is not the love you dog kind of love. This is the genuine love, you have my heart in your hand type of love. And when he said that, it just changed my life. It changed the course of how I wanted to lead as a CEO. And the first step in that, in a moment, was I asked myself the tough question, do I love my team? And the answer was a resounding no. So I knew I needed to start there. I needed to figure out how I can begin to love my team members and then thereby create an environment of love and support and a culture of love where everyone supports each other and cares for one another. And upon going on my own journey first, and then inviting my other leaders to join me a few years in, this culture of love and the behaviors to demonstrate the love in a business environment spread. And as a result, not only did we survive, but we thrived. And our business tripled our revenue, increased our EBITDA margins differential by 44%, going from negative EBITDA to positive EBITDA. Our attrition went down from 30% to 12%. And the company just started to perform on all cylinders and we were high performing. And I attribute all of that to the transformation first of myself, which I'm still not done finishing, but also the cultural transformation as a result of everyone embodying those behaviors. So that's kind of the genesis of love as a business strategy. And that story has everything to do with why we wrote the book.
Yeah. When you said you let people go in a very unhumane way, was it just kind of a mass layoff?
Yes.
My key doesn't work in the lock anymore kind of a thing, or just an email, or gathering everybody in the room, or all of the above?
It was what you would traditionally see in a corporate environment, but this wasn't like a Zoom layoff, but it was an in-person, but gather everybody in the room and just announce at once, and then have boxes and a security guard waiting to escort them outside of the building. And when this would happen, we had asked the rest of those who had not been laid off to move to a different part of the office. And I was addressing them, telling them, if you're in this room, you're one of those lucky ones who did not get laid off. And then on the other room was my HR director and other VPs who were doing the layoffs. And the reason that in the moment I regret this, but I was not allowed to say bye to the team members was because they were worried that I would be apologetic. So they told me, no, don't come, go to the other side. So I didn't even get to say bye or say my part to those folks who had built relationships for even a decade, some of them. And so, yeah, it was just a very inhumane manner. But unfortunately, it is a practice in the corporate world. And that's what we tried to follow.
Yeah, it's kind of legal speak, right? You need to do this to CYA, and I get it. Did you ever reach out to some of those people later? Run into them at the football game? That would be that's where I thought you were going. You're going to run into somebody at the football game.
I did when I finally had the ability to forgive myself for what had happened. I did reach out, but also the book was one of my ways of openly declaring my apology and seeking forgiveness, not just from those that I had laid off, but everyone that I had mistreated, that I had over the course of the years of running Software, not really been a good leader. I had belittled a lot of them. People had quit because of a conversation with me. And I just did not respect a lot of people. And I may have had maybe over 1,000 employees come and go from the company up until that point in time, because it was over a decade. So that was one of my hopes, was that my book is an open declaration of seeking forgiveness from everyone who had been through the walls of Software.
Mm. Now, you had this epiphany the Monday after the Houston comeback. Who was the first person you talked to, or did you talk to anybody? I would just, and I don't know. I mean, if it were me, I would be like, okay, I've just got this.
Yeah.
I've got this energy in me now. I have to say something.
Yeah.
Was there somebody or?
So the same week on a Friday, we had a company-wide gathering with the remaining 160, 170 employees between India and the US operations. I was in person in the Houston office, and our India team joined virtually. And we had a company address that Friday. And, our morale was really low. We'd just gone through layoffs. And, I had to address the company as a whole in our quarterly stand-up. And in that meeting, I, for the first time in my entire career there, talked about love and talked about supporting and caring for one another. And I openly said, I love you all. Now, had my heart already made it? Had it been aligned to my tongue in the moment in time? No, it wasn't 100% aligned. But that was my attempt to openly declare to my team in the moment in time that this is what we're going to try to do. And I'm going to try to do that by starting to practice that. I didn't like overtly say, this is what we're going to do. I just said, hey, I just watched this football game. I saw them win. And it was the love and support of one another that got them to succeed. And so I want to see us do the same. So I want to start by saying, I love you all. And trust me, the audience in the room had their eyes wide open, be like, what the hell is Mohammed doing? It's talking about love. So that was my first time that I ever shared that. And I openly kind of, maybe that was my commitment, maybe that was my declaration.
Mm.
And I needed to do it so I could hold myself accountable. And I was told by my co-authors, hey, that day when you said that, we're like, oh, here's Mohammed with his maybe flavor of the month. Here he goes again. He wants to do something new, which he isn't going to hold up to. But this time it was different. This time I was genuinely committed to trying to strive for a better culture and changing my behaviors. And it's a long journey, and it's one that I think I still make mistakes. I still have my episodes. They call it the moments, Mohments, to make fun of me when I lose my temper or do things. But nonetheless, it's something that I strive to become more self-aware of those moments and try to reduce the time for me to recognize it to when I do things, and then reduce the frequency of those occurrences as I become more self-aware. But at the same time, I think that team began to accept me for who I am, and also give me grace and practice forgiveness, to where they let me have my slip ups and quickly forgive me, and give me the chance to try to recover and keep going. So without the support of the team, I wouldn't have been able to be on this journey. But that's kind of how it became a flavor of the month to an actual, no, this is real. We're going to work towards it.
Yeah, I would imagine you would have met with some skepticism early on, but you're kind of rebuilding trust, or maybe just building trust at that point. And, every day it gets a little stronger, it gets a little stronger, it gets a little stronger. And the flavor of the month becomes more than the flavor of the month when you're 6 weeks in. When you're beyond that first month and it's still there. Can you give us kind of some examples of, hey, this is just some things you did to follow through on the notion that, hey, I love you guys?
So some of the things that I began doing to begin with, and many people didn't know I was doing it for this very reason, because this is more personal to me. But my wife used to pack me lunch every day to take to work. And I realized that if I needed to practice selflessness, I needed to be able to part ways with some things that I was really attached to. So the first thing I decided was I'm going to share my lunch every day. And so every day that I showed up to work, I would walk around the bullpen area and say, "Hey, I got this delicious Indian curry and food. Would you like to have some?" And I would walk around, people would say no, no, no. And occasionally someone would say yes. And I would first split out the portion for that person, and then whatever is remaining, I would eat. So that was one first step to kind of practice this detachment to things. Then beyond that, I had to learn to personally, for me, and like I said, many people didn't know I was on this journey, but I gave up flying. I didn't want to fly because I felt like that was something that I was doing for myself. And I would go in the middle of the workday and I would spend dollars that could have gone to paychecks. I sold my Porsche. I used to have a $150,000 Porsche. Gave me a lot of ego and satisfaction to drive on the street and feel superior. And I gave up the car, sold the car, put the money back into the company for whatever it was worth at the time. I mean, the value does not hold.
Yeah, I get it.
Didn't take a paycheck for 8 months. Didn't do a lot of things that behind the scenes that people did not know, because I just needed to do it. So that was like the starting part of me learning to cut my selfish needs and worldly desires so that I may put others' needs before mine. And I needed to start to do that. And it was hard in the beginning. It was awkward. It was not something I was used to doing. But when I started to do it more and more, just like going to the gym, it became addictive. It became very easy to do things for others. It became easy to do things, put others' needs before yours. And it became quite addictive. And that's how my relationship and my desire to want to create an environment of culture of love became more realistic. I began to, because of serving our team, I began to look for their goodness instead of their bad qualities. I was able to focus on their good qualities. And as I started to focus on their good qualities and good capabilities and the good things they were doing, it became easy to love my team. It wasn't something I was struggling with, but it all came from first not thinking of myself and thinking of others. And as you begin to serve them, it just becomes easy to love your team. And to be honest, it becomes very addictive. I mean, I'd do anything and everything I could. I'd even like help serving food, cleaning the table, picking up the break room after we had a party, anything and everything that I would generally delegate. I began to try and do it myself instead of asking others or doing it beside others. And, I began to have more empathy. I began to feel and understand the situations I was asking of the team by putting myself in those situations. And, it just became easier and easier to build a better connection and genuine relationships with the people around me.
Was there ever a point that somebody said, maybe some of your co-authors, people who were close to you, "Hey, are you okay? Is there something terminally ill about you, or something that, just..."
I don't think in the moment anybody came and told me in the moment. They told me many years later, "Man, when you did that, we were like, what's wrong with you?" But nobody had the courage to come and ask, are you okay at the moment? Because, I had a culture of fear in the
Mm,
organization at the time. They were fearful of me. They were scared of me. And it was not a psychologically safe environment for anybody to walk up and say things or ask questions like that. So many years later, they did confess and talk about how they were feeling in a moment. And that's when I got more awareness. Oh, okay, this is how I made you feel. I had no idea.
yeah.
In my mind, I thought this is how I'm being perceived. But really how you experienced me was not at all how I was thinking. And that's really the lack of self-awareness. That's my self-awareness gap. How I
Yeah.
see the world experience me is not how the world experiences me. And um, I could only figure that out once people began to start opening up and sharing how they felt, how they experienced me, how they took my actions or my behaviors and how it made them feel. That's when I'm like, crap, I had no idea. I
Yeah.
may have had the best intent, but that is not how people felt the impact.
Yeah.
And I needed to change that.
Man, I think as humans we're all great rationalizers. You
Mhm.
have that explosion, right? That blow up. And I think we're all prone to them. And well, I did because this, you kind of rationalize it away. And
Mhm.
there's in reality, there's really no excuse for it. And I think we all try and get better and better at it. How many employees does Software have now?
We have approximately still 140, 150
Okay.
employees.
Okay.
We have not really grown. Our revenues and everything grew threefold, but our size of the organization did not grow, which I think is another testament to how small teams can do big things
Yeah.
with a culture, because you become more high performing as a result and you're able to do more with less. So that's that. But also COVID and the recent epidemic, sorry, pandemic, not epidemic, thank God,
Yeah.
uh, has put a strain on our business, but attribute still our resilience that, and the culture has also helped us hunker down and get through COVID as a result of what we had experienced in
Yeah.
2015, 2016.
Yeah. I'm not surprised that your head count hasn't gone up, because when you have people who are really bought in, who love each other, to use your terms, they're willing to work that little bit extra.
Mhm.
And when you start talking about large numbers, 100 employees, 150 employees, all those little extra moments add up,
Yeah.
to people you don't need.
Yeah.
So, um, have you hired back any of the people you let go, or there's
Yeah.
any? Okay.
Actually, we've had a few, both in India and the United States, where people who had been let go had been hired back
Okay.
as well. So yeah, that was a good testament for us. But also, there are still people who are upset, disappointed, and rightfully so. I don't blame them. And if you go to a Glassdoor, you will see feedback like that on Glassdoor, and that's not uncommon. But hopefully one day we'll all be able to move past it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My experience with people who have been let go is, in time they realize it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's allowed them to do things, and they may not have liked it in the moment, but they will realize, I worked for somebody. It was, I don't want to say it was toxic, but it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I'm fond of it, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing to the ability I'm doing it, but for that experience. And our past really sets us up to do our future. So
Yeah.
let's talk about, how can the listeners help you? Love is a Business Strategy. You have a podcast.
Mhm.
Certainly buy the book. I have a number of copies that I purchased. I've got a signed copy from you. Thank you very much. But how could listeners help you? Certainly buying the book. What else?
I basically am looking to offer my help to the
Okay.
listeners, if that's okay.
Sure.
One of the passions and vision that we feel is a new calling for us. We finally felt like we found our purpose, um, through this journey, and that is to bring back humanity to the workplace. So if there is ever an opportunity for any of the authors or co-authors to come out and speak to your teams, speak to your organizations or networking groups to just share our story, we believe that is the best way to spread the message and bring about more awareness of how organizations can bring about humanity back into the workplace, we'd be happy to do so. So if you want to get in touch with us and inquire about us speaking at your organization and so forth, we're happy to do it. Other than that, if you want to give gifts of the book to folks in your organization or your network or your friends, please, by all means, you can buy our book on Amazon or our website. But we also have the ebook and an audiobook available for the book. Beyond that, if you're looking for organizational change where you want to bring about culture change, we do have products and solutions for that too. We offer what is called Seneca Leaders and other digital products with culture transformation. But if you also just want to build yourself a high-performing software, we can do that too. So we can do a lot.
Okay.
But
great.
I would say in order to help the world hear more about our story, that's the first step. That would be a priority for us. Like what you're doing, you're allowing me to share my story on your podcast. This is awesome.
Well, I really appreciate the time. This is Harlan, Coach Harlan connected us, and
Yes.
You never know with these connections. This was a home run. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Frank. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.